Hi, my name is Bestick, and I am the worship pastor. So I'm usually up here in a different capacity, but I am blessed to be able to bring you guys the word this morning. So I'm sure you guys just saw that creepy intro, and you're like, what are we going to talk about today? So in order to clarify that, we are going to start today with a question, simple question. Now, have you ever been afraid of the dark? And not just that 90s TV show that I am sure that made many of us older millennials afraid of the dark. I think we have a class action lawsuit there somewhere because of shared trauma. Anybody remember that TV show? Yes, yes, I'm still scarred. But can you remember a time where you were actually afraid of being in the dark, where you were genuinely scared? Or can you think back to your childhood, and do you have any memories of running to get up under the covers because you looked around in your room and nothing looked the same because the lights were off? Well, for many of us, the dark was our real first fear, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because when it's dark, like if we turned off the lights right now, literally nothing would be different in the room. We just wouldn't be able to see. But for some reason, before we could give names to the boogeymen and the people who scared us from under the bed, the dark was the first thing in our lives that kind of robbed us of our peace. Now, as a mommy, I have been recently reminded of just how real that fear is. Like, I feel like I just watched as Judah, he's my oldest, he's 3 years old. He was this little bitty baby, and the dark was this place of comfort, and all he really wanted to do was be held and fed. But now he is this toddler who has very specific ideas about the dark. We have bought night lights, we have crazy different colored strobe lights, we've got all of these different routines in place to make sure that he feels comfortable when he goes to sleep in the dark, especially because mommy and daddy aren't there. So, just to give you a little glimpse of what I've been going through, we have a video. This is taken from a blackout a couple of months ago, and this was his reaction to the whole ordeal.
How's it going?
It's not going great.
Okay, what's happening?
We are out of electricity, and all the TVs are off, so we can't see anything.
Oh, okay. So, is it light in there in your house, or is it dark?
It's good. So I have this flashlight so I can see.
Okay, Pumpkin. Is this an interesting experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, you never seen it all black before like this, have you?
Yeah.
No electricity?
No electricity.
Oh, wow. Well, are you waiting for your power to come back on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we are down here. We're waiting for the power to come on again. So we can go back in the bedroom.
All right, sweetheart. Well, let me know when the power comes back on, all right?
Okay.
Now, I have to admit, this is a really cute reaction, and he can't really help it. He just makes everything cute. But I remember this night, and I remember that he was really concerned about the fact that we were in a blackout. I actually think he had 2 flashlights. He had like a bigger one and then the smaller one to like look at the floor to make sure he knew what he was looking at. And I don't really blame him because, to be honest, the dark can be kind of scary. I mean, I just gave that example of how if we turned off the lights right now, nothing would really change in the room. And I tell that to my child to get him to go to sleep at night. But I know for a fact that there are certain animals and bugs that only come out in the dark. So who is really telling the truth here? I mean, what's going on? There could just be all kinds of jeepers creepers just waiting for it to get dark so they can come out and party and do whatever. And I know my imagination is kind of too big, but I'm just not okay with that. I'm not okay with being unsure when all of the lights go out. So I'm gonna give us a Minnesota example. How many of you in here have been camping? Yes, camper. Yep, that's what I figure most of the room. Ain't it dark outside at night? Like, it's dark, y'all. Like, you can't see anything but like stars and the moon, maybe. And that's just if it's a clear night. And your eyes, they kind of adjust. They adjust, but it takes too long for my eyes to adjust. So I figure in the time that it has taken for my eyes to adjust, anything could have come and eaten me by that time. I don't know. I just know that there is nothing scarier than trying to find the outhouse in the middle of Minnesota in the woods in the dark. It is a scary experience for lots of reasons, but mostly because you can't see anything. So, when we are confronted with the dark, we run towards the light. We look for the moon and the stars, and we get night lights. In a blackout, we get flashlights and candles and lanterns. And we've built street lights and neon signs, and we have electrical grids for power, and we've created all of these modern conveniences that allows us to escape the darkness. Because darkness strips us of our availability to see. It robs you of your awareness of the things that are going on around you, and it can make you really feel vulnerable to personal attacks. Darkness can affect your mood. It can create an environment where some plants and animals actually die. And like it or not, there are real Jeepers Creepers. Now, not like that movie, that terrible movie that I'm still recovering from, but nocturnal animals who live and operate better in the darkness, not just them, but there are also spiritual forces who live and operate better in the darkness. So if we look at Ephesians 6:12, it says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms." So darkness is scary, but not for God. And he sent Jesus to be the remedy for our fear. That's why I have so enjoyed the current series that we're in, A Light in Darkness, where we have explored different ways of dealing with our darkest moments. If we just think back the first week, Gary spoke about how the first thing that God did was speak light, and how when the light of Jesus comes on the scene, incredible things can happen. Second week, John Elmer spoke about doing the dirty work, and he gave this really beautiful illustration of how we shouldn't shy away from doing hard things to let the light of God work in our lives. And last week, Gary preached about how even in our darkest moments, like death, the light of Jesus will show up and shine for the glory of God. So as I thought about the past sermons and this idea of a light in the darkness, and I was trying to figure out what to preach about, I remembered how Jesus says that we are the light of the world. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus is still at the beginning of his ministry. He's just called his first disciples, and he's going throughout Galilee, teaching in the synagogues, spreading the good news of the kingdom, and he is healing all of the sick and the demon-possessed people that are brought to him. So much so that it says large crowds of people from Syria and Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan began to follow him. So there's this crowd of people following him, and he goes up on a mountain, and he begins to teach. He brings his disciples up, and he teaches them and the crowds of people what I think is the greatest sermon that is ever told. And that brings us today to our text. So open your Bibles with me, or however you view your Bible, and we're going to be in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. So Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, like I said, this is from the Sermon on the Mountain. It's Jesus' first big speech. And I love the way he sets this up because before he corrects anyone, before he tries to fix anything, before he tries to convert anyone, he blesses people. And then he tells them that you are the light of the world. He gives his followers an identity. And in doing so, I think that he really tells us two things. Number one, that this world needs light because of its darkness. And number two, in this world of darkness, we, the followers of Christ, are its light. Now, I'm not saying that we are the creator of light. Please hear me. I am not saying that we are Jesus or God or we are the initial source of light. But we have been given the light of Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:6 says, "For God who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ." So this means when the world is darkened by disenfranchisement and oppression, we are supposed to shine freedom and justice. When it is clouded by atrocities and tragedy, we should be the light of healing and restoration the world looks for. When we can't see through the darkening polarization and division of people, the world should say, you know what? Let's go to the church to shine clarity and unity and peace between people. Jesus, he has called us the very thing that God spoke into existence at the beginning of the world that brought chaos into order. But let's take some time to think about it, and we're going to be honest. When you think of the state of the world and its spiritual darkness, do you think the world associates people who claim to follow Christ with being its light? Let's do an exercise before we answer this. I want everyone in here, let's close your eyes. Now imagine with me that the world is this dark room. See the room with me. Feel all of the feelings that comes by being in complete darkness. And you can't see anything, but suddenly, in the middle of the room, a light turns on. And when you see that bright burst of light and all of the darkness dissipates, casting away the anxieties and confusion of the dark to show everything with clarity, do you think that the world thinks of Christians in that way? Well, honestly, and you can open your eyes if you haven't yet, I don't always know how to answer that question. Sometimes I feel like the church can be this place of division that kind of just adds to the noise and chaos instead of the light that people run to escape the darkness. And if we aren't shining our light, where does the world turn to in dark situations to find the light of God? And let's say that we are fully invested in shining a light. What should that even look like on a practical day-to-day basis? Well, I know you have all these questions. And so in preparation for this sermon, I thought, you know what, I'll just look up some quick, easy facts about light, and I'll say, like, you know, it shines and it's bright, and get my points for the sermon. But the more I researched light, the more I figured out that you basically have to be a physicist to understand what light is. I mean, really, just to understand, like, what it does in the world. Yeah, the study of light is just so big. And even in all my research, I will say that I have like the remedial high school watered down version of what light is. However, I was able to narrow all of my research down into like a few practical points and concepts to illustrate what it means to be a light by explaining what light does in the world. So, you science people, please bear with me. Remember, I am not a physicist in any means. This is my disclaimer. But bear with me. It's going to be a good ride, I promise. So, let's go back to that dark room and see the light bulb turn on. The first point today is as simple as that. Light is seen. Light is seen. Now, some of you Especially my science fans have heard that there's no such thing of darkness, and darkness is just the absence of light, which is kind of true, but as it turns out, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Darkness is not quantifiable, which means it's not something that we can measure, but rather it's a condition or a phenomenon we experience when there's an absence of light particles, which are called photons. Remember that word, photons. We're going to come back to it. So when photons, or light particles, are introduced into a space where there previously was none, i.e. darkness, this space is immediately filled with light perceivable to the human eye. And that darkness is replaced the light that we see. That darkness is replaced by the light that we see. So let's see that in our text. Verse 14 says, "A city on a hill cannot be hidden." Now, in this time, a city on a hill would signal to travelers that there's life there because the lights from the city would be so bright that it would be visible to anyone who was in the area. Now, I remember I got to go to Italy when I was in college, and we were traveling through Italy, and we went to this little town called San Gimignano. And I remember being on the bus and seeing it up in the hill and being like, oh, that's it. That's what Jesus means. That's the light. That's because when you introduce visible light into a space, the condition of darkness literally cannot change. It literally cannot stay. Light has filled the places that were previously absent of light before, and it will be seen. And if we are behaving as the light of the world, we will be seen. Think of it this way. Have you ever been on a road trip and you're driving through the dark at night and you can't see anything else other than your car? And then in the distance, boom, you see two headlights. It's probably somebody with their bright lights on. Now, there is no question of whether or not another car is coming because you see the light. Now, you might not know what kind of car it is, but because the light is visible, you know that a car is coming. And that is how people should be able to identify you as a follower of Jesus, who is the light in the world. When the situations of this world get dark, when people are struggling, when there is injustice and disenfranchisement and genocide and terrorism and heartache and pain of every kind, people should be able to see and recognize you as a Jesus follower by your light and say, oh, there is a person who can shine some justice and reconciliation on all of this tragedy. That person can shine some love and compassion on this heartache. I see someone coming who can shine some healing on this pain and suffering. When people who have been walking in darkness see you, their spiritual eyes should have to adjust because you carry the light of Jesus and it shines by the way that you live. And that's what I mean when I say that light is seen. If we are the light of the world, we will be seen in darkness, not blend into it. So verse 15 says, "Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl." Now, some translations say a basket. Now, science people, and everybody probably knows this generally, if you put a candle under a bowl, what would happen? Exactly. The flame would go out, the bowl would cut off the oxygen that is feeding the flame, and it would stop the chemical reaction needed to be able to produce light, which really just makes the candle useless. We have got to check ourselves and make sure that we aren't putting baskets over our lights or covering ourselves with things that make us blend into the darkness. I want to take us back to our car analogy. Have you ever seen a car driving at night with no headlights on? Or have you ever been that unfortunate person, I won't say that I've ever done this, who was driving around and their lights were off and people were honking their horns and swerving around? Yes, I think that we all know that it is an accident waiting to happen. Driving in the dark with no headlights is a danger to the driver as well as the drivers around them. And the same way that we check our headlights, we need to check our hearts to make sure that we aren't living in a way that would turn off our lights. Because blending into spiritual darkness is a danger to ourselves and everyone else around us. So what do I mean? about this idea of spiritual darkness? Well, when we open our mouths to contribute to social strife and injustice, when we spread gossip and lies and further the division of a community, when we choose to hate our enemies and our brothers, or we live in unforgiveness, we are driving without our headlights on. When we participate in the sexual sin or return to the addictions and vices that grieve the Holy Spirit because it defiles our bodies, we are driving without headlights on. And with our lights off, we begin to blend into the spiritual darkness of the world, and we put ourselves in danger as well as those in community with us. It's because when we blend in, we misrepresent the light of Christ and the gospel of truth. And we cannot be the light of the world if the people of the world can't distinguish us from the darkness. So let's go back to our dark room. Now, when the light is turned on, it will immediately be visible, and that's the same way that you should be visible. So let's check our hearts, and let's kind of cast off and throw off those things that would cover our lights or cause us to be blending into the spiritual darkness that's around us. So the light will be seen. Point number 2, light spreads everywhere. Now, back in our imaginary room, the light is turned off, and suddenly there is light everywhere in all directions. That's because when light travels, it moves like a wave in all directions. So here's just a little bit of science, and I really got excited about this part, guys. So here we're gonna do some pretending. Pretend that this is your light source. Here you go. Now, the atoms in the light source, they get excited by the heat or electricity or any other chemical reactions, which causes them to release photons randomly. And billions of atoms doing this at the same time causes the light to be released in every different direction at once. Let's think about it like this. Think of dropping a stone in a pond. The source of light would be the stone, and the light moves out in waves like ripples, and it spreads in every direction. So let's say this again. There's a source, there's excitement, there's a spread in all directions. A source, excitement, thank you guys, and a spread in all directions. And I'm getting excited about this because I feel like this is literally what happens when we come into contact with Jesus. Every time Jesus healed or forgave sins or preached a message of salvation, there was an excitement and a reaction that happened in people's hearts and caused them to spread the gospel in every direction, wherever they went. And God has literally given us this example in the way that light spreads. So let's see this in our text. The second part of verse 15 says, and this is in reference to that lamp, instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In that same way, you are the light of the world because you have been excited and you are reacting to the love of Jesus, and you let the gospel ripple out of you and spread in every direction to all people. Now, hear me out. Light does not get to choose who it shines on because it is naturally multidirectional. And in that same way, we who are the light of the world don't get to choose who we will be a light to. Actually, in order for light to intentionally shine a specific direction, it has to be manipulated by being focused or redirected once it leaves the light source. So, manipulation, redirection, being hyper-focused on whatever it is that I want to do or however it is that I want to shine, that is not what we are called to do. We are called to shine so that light is given to everyone in the house. So what this means is that we can't get into our little attitudes and we can't be selective about the light that God has given us. And I'll admit, it's something that I've done. I think it's something that we've all done at some point. But hear my heart when I say this, how dare we? I mean, we have been given this gift freely from Jesus. So how dare we be selective about like who we're gonna talk to or how we're gonna shine, how we're gonna show up in spaces when he's given us this free gift. We can't be particular about how we share it with those around us. We are the light of the world. This means we spread light on everyone in every situation. We spread light on friends and enemies alike. We do not show favoritism. We spread light in the classroom, in the grocery store parking lot, in the Facebook comments, in every single direction for everyone. Gary has a saying he says, the good news isn't good if it's not good for all people. So I want to add to that. You cannot be the light of the world if you are not a light for all people. So, light, it spreads everywhere. Our third point today is that light enables sight. So, this is really sciencey. When light travels in every direction, it interacts with the surface of objects, and the light that is reflected travels to your eyes, which your brain turns into images, which enables you to see. Now, everybody might not get as excited as I am about this, but I mean, my mind, honestly, it was just absolutely blown. Like, I knew this something previously, but I just started to sit and think about it, that everything that we see is just our brain's interpretation of reflected light. Like, what does that even mean? Does a thing even exist if there's no light? Like, I went down this whole deep rabbit hole. Honestly, I almost didn't finish the sermon because I was on NASA.com researching things. But it's so much more complicated than that, you guys. But basically, light literally gives us the ability to see. Now, we're going to do a little participation. If I show you this, what do you see? An apple, yes. But no. What you see is white light from these lights in here, which contains all of the colors of the visual spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, for all my Miss Rachel parents in here. You know the song. So that light shines on the surface of this object. The surface is made of molecules that absorb most wavelengths, for example, blue and green and yellow, and they reflect certain wavelengths, in this case, mainly red. Now, all of this is just happening outside the eye. I haven't even gotten to the eye yet. So, this reflected light spectrum, this reflected red light spectrum, it bounces off the object, travels to your eyes. So the object itself isn't producing red color, it's reflecting the red portion of the light spectrum, and it's absorbing the rest. Now, when the light enters your eye, it's focused on your retina with special cells that are called rods, which detect light and darkness, and cones that detect color. Now, these cells, specifically red cones, turn the light into electrical signals, and these signals are sent to your brain, which interprets them as images of this object. It's a lot more complicated than you would think. So in short, when you see this, what you are actually seeing is the reflected light from this object's surface that your brain interprets as color, shape, and texture. And millions of years ago, someone saw the image of this red reflected light from this thing, and they decided to call it an apple. So like I said, it's complex, but do you see how critical light is in our ability to see? Our collective understanding of what a thing is based on how our brain interprets reflected light. And that is exactly how critical our light is, because it gives the world the ability to see. Let's go back to our text. Verse 16 says, "In the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see." So when we walk through the darkness of the world with our light shining, it gets reflected and bounced and absorbed into situations, and then gets interpreted into the image of Christ by the brains of the people who are in those situations. And now they can have a revelation because they can see what was previously hidden by the darkness. Ephesians 5:8 and 9 says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth." The light we carry is the light of truth. So when we shine in confusion, people see clarity. When we shine in conflict, people see reconciliation. And I know that that can seem kind of intimidating because it feels too big, but today, let's choose to view it as encouraging. Because we get to have these beautiful opportunities to be a light so that the world can see the goodness and the righteousness and truth of a living God. So finally, our last point, and this point everything else kind of supports this point. Light causes change. Now, light is a form of energy, which means it can be transformed into different types of energy. When this happens, it can turn into things like heat or electrical energy, and it can bring warmth. Think fireplaces. Light brings life by triggering biochemical changes like photosynthesis in plants. Light changes the mood of a space, allowing you to see in clear images and bright colors that help regulate our moods and impact our sleep and wake cycles. So light transfers its energy so that whatever is around it is changed. In the same way, we should transfer our light into the way that we live so that everything and everyone around us is changed. Now, Jesus makes this same point to us in the text. Matthew verse 16 says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So Jesus is saying that when you let your light shine, the world will see it and it will glorify God because of you. That's because something happens when the world sees your light. There's a change that takes place in the hearts of people. People start to wonder about that light, and they are drawn closer to it. And the spirit of that light that radiates outward from us should change everything around us so that wherever we are in the world, it starts to look more like Jesus. Now, I understand that this can seem like a really, really big concept because I'm basically telling us, okay, each of you, let's go out and change the world. So let me give you some practical kind of bite-sized ways to maybe put this into practice. So when I was growing up, my mom always had a saying. She said, "You should always leave a place better than it was before." Now, a lot of the time, I will admit, she probably just said this to get me to clean my room. And it did not always work. But as I have gotten older, I have realized, once I've experienced Jesus, that this is really true. Many of the things that she said were true. But not just about cleaning. When we enter situations, especially those outside of the church, it is so critical and important that we handle it with the same love and compassion that Jesus would. When we choose to handle the world with care, we show it how the light of Jesus can change lives and make the condition of your spirit better than it was before. So we don't have to be biblical scholars in order to minister to others and spread change. We could just try to leave things better. We can just show up. We can listen. We can be slow to give or take offense. We can be gracious and humbly yield to others. We could be kind. We could be patient. We can choose love even when it's hard to do. We can forgive and stop charging people a debt that Jesus has already paid. Let's let your light set the spiritual tone and cause hearts to change by reflecting Jesus. And band, you guys can come on up now. So let's do that. I want to challenge you guys this week as your next step. So as you think about your upcoming week and all the situations that you're going to have and all the people that you're going to talk to, the places that you are going to go, I want you to make in advance the decision to set the spiritual tone by shining the light of Jesus and leaving circumstances better than when you found them. Let's be the light and let the way that we live change the spirit of our rooms and our homes and our jobs and our schools so that people will see it, they will choose to glorify God and then begin to change the spirit of their rooms and their homes and their jobs and their schools. And just like that ripple of light that goes outward, we can see a world that is slowly but surely changing. And where there was darkness before, there is now the glory of God. So as we close today, I want to bring you all back to my initial question. Have you ever been afraid of the dark? And if you have been afraid of the dark, are you currently suffering from a condition of darkness? I want to let you know today that you do not have to, because Jesus has said that you are the light of the world. We don't have to wait. We don't have to rely on other things and other people to be the light. We have the power to be a light wherever we go because we're connected to our Father and He is with us and He gives this gift and ability to shine for others. I know that sometimes that is hard to comprehend, and I completely understand that feeling of when you get anxious and you let that panic rise up in your chest because the condition of your reality, of the world, of spiritual darkness, it seems like it's too big to handle. Like it's towering over you and that it could just crumble and fall at any second. But if you are in a dark place today and you feel like this, like things have just built up to be so big, I want to ask us all to stand up today. And as you contemplate the things that we've talked about, if you feel like you need prayer because the darkness is just too big, please come up and receive prayer. Another situation that God brought to me, maybe you're here today and you feel like your light just keeps getting covered or it just keeps getting snuffed out by your relationships, by your finances, by loneliness and depression, or by any of the cares of the world. And that because your light is out, you're starting to blend into the darkness. You're starting to go back to those things to where people can't distinguish you as the light of the world from anything else. If you're feeling that way today, I would just encourage you all to come up and ask for prayer. And prayer teams, as people come up, please come up and pray for people. If you've been trained in prayer, now is your time to be a light. I was thinking just earlier of the reason that this is so important to be a light. I experienced a death of someone who was close to me recently. And I remember as I was grappling with grief and praying about things, going to God and saying, was I a light to this person? Was I a light in every situation that I had with this person, God? And really having to pray through that and really just re-examining how I exist as a person and how I will be going forward. And I just think of all of us, because one day we are all going to have to give an account to Jesus of how we decided to show up in the world, of how we decided to shine, of the things that we decided to say, of who we were after He has given us this free gift of love. So with that in mind, if you feel like you're just not showing up as the light that you should, I want the people of Mercy Vineyard to be able to stand before Jesus and say, yes, God, yes, I was, yes, and to have Him be our defense. So, if you light's just been turned off, or if you're even questioning whether you show up that way, please come up for prayer.